Greetings world. We are Anon DK. As we continue putting our document L into video, you may notice we have put all other messages on hold for the time being. We hope to finish with this soon so we can move forward, but in order to reach people they must be on the same page. We hope these detailed explanations of the inner working of the elite families helps, so in the future less explanation will be needed, as you will wake up and begin to see and hear for yourselves and spread it through your own ways, causing the idea to forever grow and flourish. Today we will look at the families beginning with the letter R. So, we have already discussed the Rothschilds back to Isaac Bauer in 1520. Let's go back from here. Isaac Elkanan Rothschild lived in Frankfurt Preußen. His father was Elkanan Tarot Rose, whose names include Ben Uri, Han, Elkan, and Elkanan Bauer. The Naphtali tribe, their bloodline, was from the land of Canaan, which makes the Elkanan names we see through the line understandable. Not to mention the Han, which are remnants connecting their bloodline to the tribes. Elkanan's father was Uri Fibesh zu Bacharach, born 1475, lived in Bagor, Deutschland. This lineage back is with the Oppenheimers bloodline. These two families and all of their names are very interwoven. Elkanan's son, Isaac Elkartumha Bacharach, married Esther Rothschild, and they had Moshe Rothschild in 1574 and lived in Frankfurt, Germany like their ancestors. Moshe married Gutschaftalli Tum Rothschild. Her father's name is Naphtali Hertz. The name Naphtali is often seen on the wives' sides as we go through the lineage. There is simply too much detail to put everything here. Besides, if I spelled it all out for you, you would not be able to research for yourself and see the proof of what I say. This family has always been a bit too much in the public eye, and consequently, their name has changed a lot. For example, some of their names have been Herz Rothschild Teopfer, Hertz, Naphtali Ben Moshe, Hersk, Isaac Elkar Rothschild, Bauer in 1520, and Uri Fibesh zu Bacharach are just a few. If we follow Esther Rothschild's lineage back, it leads to her great-grandfather Chaim Hertz Katz, Tumber in 1400s, also called Haim and Friedberg Tumbar, and others. We leave much of these name changes out of the video as they are easier to read than to listen to. One more we see, from this lineage alone, Naphtali Hertz Ben Yaakov Elkar Bacharach, a rabbi in Frankfurt around 1600s. These families know where they came from and they don't hide it completely. Just enough to fool the masses, those who are too distracted by their games to wake up. After the Bavarian Illuminati were exposed, the central occult power over the European secret societies shifted to Carborism, also known as Alta Vedita, led by Karl Rothschild, son of Amschel. The Rothschilds changed the family's name from Bauer in the 1800s. They were well known for flying their coat of arms, a white flag with a red hexagram which they made from the Red Seal of Solomon, holding a golden eagle. The eagle holds 5 arrows in its talons, each representing a different city they own: London, Naples, Frankfurt, Paris and Vienna. The Rothschilds' main focus seems to be keeping attention on themselves, as counterfeit Jews, and off of the Jesuits and Zionists. It takes a special breed to be able to deceive the people, claim to be the ones they kill, and even after being found out, continue doing it. Once their reputation got too big, because they always flew the symbol over their mansion's door and were known for being violent, hate-filled racists, the name changed from Bauer to Rothschild, which means red shield in German. So the Boers changed to Rothschilds have changed their star from red Germany to blue Israel, one level higher on the elite's color chart. To further facilitate this change, the Germanic family set up the necessary puppet to devastate the real Jews into accepting a country called Israel. Enter Adolf Hitler. Alois Hitler, father of Adolf, was the illegitimate son of Maria Anna Schickel-Gruber and Baron Rothschild. Adolf Hitler was a member of the Thule Society in 1919. In the Thule Society, sun symbolism is used as the Aryans were sun worshippers. The Thule Society practiced Satyr worship. The inner core within the Thule Society were all Satanists who practiced black magic. The society was not a working man's group, as it included amongst its members were what we would expect: judges, police chiefs, barristers, lawyers, university professors and lecturers, aristocratic families, leading industrialists, surgeons, physicians, scientists, as well as a host of rich and influential bourgeois. The membership of the Thule Society also became the foundation of the Nazi Party. Karl Rothschild participated in a secret document that was sent out to the headquarters of Masonry from the Alta Vedita. The Masons were quite distressed when a copy of this was lost, and offered rewards to anyone who could return the lost copy. Originally written in Italian, the title translates as Permanent Instructions, or Practical Code of Rules, Guide for the Heads of the Highest Grades of Masonry. Zevi Hirsch Kalischer proposed the Rothschilds buy all of Erez Israel, which they did, making it appropriate that the nation carries their star as the state logo. The ultra-Orthodox Jews have tried to keep their original documents far from the reach of the Jesuits. Citizens of Israel would not serve in the Israeli army because they know that their God was not behind the creation of modern Israel, but rather the rich, Luciferian, Jesuits. Recently a plane and helicopter collided above the Rothschilds' estate, not coincidentally while Jacob Rothschild was out walking. News has been silent on the rest of the story, but another plane has crashed again near the Rothschild residence. It is also not coincidence that this new 4chan commenter called Q suddenly takes control of the narrative. Time will tell. We will be discussing Rothschilds as the timeline continues. Besides, the family is a popular one and not much need be said of them. Another popular family is the Rockefellers. We will look briefly at them and the rest of the families in this chapter. The Rockefeller family. In 1970, Nelson Rockefeller did not pay 1 cent in income taxes. It's not a big surprise, as none of the elite have a personal income to be taxed. He was one of the top richest, if not the richest man in the US. The Rockefellers' focus is on education and religion, although they own Boeing and a multitude of other things. The first Rockefeller we are told about was William Avery Rockefeller, also known as Big Bill, Dr. William Livingstone, around 1810. He was in the occult, practiced magic, had no morals and was a bigamist who had numerous wives around the US. He also had a number of mistresses, of course, as well as a large number of sexual partners besides. Charged with raping a woman, he escaped the state of New York to avoid jail. Johann is Wilhelm Rockefeller, born around 1630 in Rockefeld, Rieland, Germany, was the father of William, the Rockefeller who came to America. The name changes from Rockefelder to Rockefeld and so on. If we go back a bit further in the same area we find Johann Rockefeld, in 1450 married to Margareta. The Dudley, Withrow and McCormick families are tied to the Rockefeller family. We can see Ramo de Perales y de Rocafull in 1637 of the Rockefeller line in Spain with the Grand Master of the Order of St. John, a Jesuit order and Knights of Malta group. The Perellos lineage is easy to trace, but the Rockefeller name now Rocafull coming from his mother, Maria de Rocafull Pumarine y de Roca Berti IV Contessa de Albatera. Her father was Remy de Rocafull Pumarine. Title is much larger of course, a baron in the early part of 1600s. It's easy to find the line in Albatera, Spain. Follow the names, not the spelling, and follow the titles and money. William I of Rockefell, Lord for the King of Aragon around 1212. There are many connections to the Aragon nobility in the Rockefeller family. Adela de Rockefell, heiress of the Rockefell family, married Bertrand IV, Lord of Anduze, Alais, Saint Bonnet, and Mayreuse around 1110. Adela's father, Godfrey, was born 1070 in Roquefeuille, France, the son of Jordan de Cresel. If we follow Adela's Rockefeller line, the mother's side, we see it even further back in 900 with Henry I de Rockefell, Vicomte de Cresel. In a letter written by Matthew Rockefeller, he traces the lineage back to Zakkai Yehuda, Exilarch around 771, a descendant of Exilarch Bostai and Isdadwar. Isdadwar was a descendant of Persian kings, Byzantine emperors, and allegedly the prophet Zoroaster. Exilarch or Resh Galuta, meaning head of the exile, was a representative of King David. Leading the line to Marquis Theodoric, Duke of Septimia, who came to France at Charlemagne's request and given the title King of the Jews. Like all of the families, they are Ashkenazi from the Khaza region of Pannonia. Ashkenazi is simply a term for the area they are from. Not everyone who is an Ashkenazi is of the elite bloodline or a Jesuit. It's simply a term used instead of saying Germanic Jew, making the division and distinction from the Jews of Israel and the Middle East and Africa. The Jesuits are called Rockefeller's soldiers by many in the clubs. Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution was unanimously changed by the President, who was directed to include the Rockefeller family security. The President was directed by Conrad Rockefeller, in a letter sent from Laarsburg, Germany, as per the Committee of Five, which is a group appointed to formulate plans to carry out the intention of the amendment to Article 2. From the moment it was signed, Rockefellers have had authority over the CIA, the FBI and the Pentagon, not to mention NATO and much more. If we listen closely, we can eavesdrop on the 6th Rockefeller Family Association reunion held in New York September 9, 1910. After a lovely dinner, a piano solo, a recitation, a few speakers with lovely things to praise the Rockefellers for, a poem written by Harry Ellard, and read by the usual speaker, Reverend J.N.D.L. from Pennsylvania, titled, "The Patriot," was respectfully dedicated to dear Mr. B.P. Rockefeller, who in this poem is praised as a pioneer and much more. The poem is found in the report of the Rockefeller Family Association on archive.org. And goes as such. Quote, "Throughout the western country and its barren waste so wild, the pioneer once wandered with the freedom of a child, his axe, a goodly weapon, whose reverberating stroke sweet echoes from the silence in melody awoke. He had helped a nation's struggle, in its contest for the right. He bore our flag in glory, when triumphant in the fight, and then with soul undaunted he turned his steps to roam, in the haunts of elk and bison to rear the shrine of home. As o'er the plains he travelled with oxen team so slow, in his spacious prairie schooner, he sang his westward ho. Many trials and privations he encountered on his way, in coping with the redskins whom he firmly held at bay. He crossed the lonely prairies to reach the mountain slope, but when he saw the lofty peaks his heart was filled with hope, for rising in their grandeur, they seemed to hail the day when progress through the western land would swiftly make its way. Great visions of a fortune had flitted through his mind. He dreamed that from his efforts El Dorado he would find, though he did not seek for rapid wealth from gold and silver ore. He found the richer treasure Colorado had in store. End quote. So moving on. In 1961 we see young Michael C. Rockefeller was in New Guinea with his father Nelson Rockefeller. Governor Nelson was grandson of Standard Oil founder John D. Rockefeller, one of the richest men in the world, and when Michael was young, he opened the Museum of Primitive Art. Michael was fascinated by it and when he grew up decided he would add to it by photographing the Azmats. He visited 13 villages in 3 weeks. He went on many digs with an archaeologist friend and brought back many things which can be seen in the museum today. As the story goes, Michael, who was 23 years old, and Nelson ran out of gas in their boat and had to swim 10 miles to shore. Michael, so young and fit, was never seen again. His death was ruled drowning. However, there are cannibals in the area and his body was never recovered, after weeks of searches. CFR member David Rockefeller has died this 2017, leaving behind not only Chase and his other banks and businesses including Rockefeller University, Rockefeller Foundation, and the Trilateral Commission, but his 6 children. David Rockefeller Jr., born July 24, 1941, is the one we will see taking the reins from his father, as he has been prepped for it his whole life. When one dies it does not end, and David Jr. was in his father's place long before he died. Abigail Aldrich Rockefeller, born in 1943, is the professed black sheep of the family. Being a feminist Marxist, she was involved in the female liberation group called Cell 16. Eva Rockefeller is director of the Global Development and Environment Institute and involved in the family businesses. Margaret Duley Rockefeller founded the Siagos Institute in 1986. She is a board member of the Council on Foreign Relations and serves on the advisory committee of the David Rockefeller Center for Latin American Studies at Harvard University. Richard Gilder Rockefeller was a Harvard graduate who died in a plane crash. Eileen Rockefeller holds the founding chair of Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors, established in New York City in 2002. The empire is rolling without a hitch. The dynasty is still going strong. Let's get a move on to the next, our family. In 1898, Bechtel, a super-secret international corporate web, was created as a working arm of the CIA, both under the inner elite Illuminati. It is the largest construction and engineering outfit in the USA and the world. The Dulles book Chapter 9 explains it perfectly. Quote, "The most important posts in the USA government are held by former Bechtel officers. They are part of the Web, an interconnected control system, which links the unilateralist plans, the CFR, Council of Foreign Relations, the first elite version of the UN, the Order of Illuminism, Cult of the All-Seeing Eye, and other interlocking groups." End quote. We can see from this page of the book called The Profiteers, Bechtel and the Men Who Rule the World. As well as many other books exposing this company, the same thing Clinton pulled in Libya was planned before, and Bechtel can be tied to oil in the Middle East as well as war profiteering, assassinations, trafficking and more. 1891 The Rothschilds became more noted within Freemasonry, being praised in the Globe with statements like, "There is no one today who better represents the triumph of equality and work in the 19th century than M. Le Baron de Rothschild." Charles T. Russell in 1891 wrote a letter to Baron Rothschild, mailed from Palestine, which outlined how to establish their Jews in Palestine. Russell's letters praised the Rothschilds' money which established Jewish colonies in Palestine. Quote, "What is needed here, therefore, next to water and cleanliness, is a good government which will protect the poor from the ravenous and the wealthy. Banking institutions on sound bases, and doing business honorably, are also greatly needed." Russell continues, "May the God of Jacob direct you, my dear sir, and all interested with you in the deliverance and prosperity of Israel, and blessed will they be who, to any extent, yield themselves as his servants in fulfilling his will as predicted." End quote. The Rothschilds supported Rhodes to form De Beers, and he made 7 wills which established a secret society modeled after the Jesuits and Masons to help bring in a one-world government centered upon Britain, as well as the Rhodes Scholarships. De Beers Corporation is run by Sir Harry Oppenheimer today, and it seems his son Nicky tomorrow. Oppenheimer is chairman of South African gold producers and runs the Hong Kong diamond market. One need only follow this breadcrumb trail to find the elite's puppets. Lord Rothschild was part of the inner group of Rhodes' secret society but was replaced by his son-in-law Lord Rosebery, who wasn't as conspicuous. The Fabian socialists dominated the staff at Oxford when the Rhodes scholars began arriving. Lindsay Russell worked for the Vanderbilts, who we will discuss later. She started the Pilgrim Society, which is a 6 degrees of the branch Illuminati. Lindsay Russell is also chairman of the CFR, which is a 4 degrees. The Vanderbilts, the Whitneys, the Goulds, and the Rockefellers gave large sums of money to Billy Graham for his New York crusade, which they controlled. That leads us into the Russell family. Charles Taz Russell, 1852, also known as Pastor Taz, is one of the most well-known Russells. Son of Anne Eliza Byrie Russell and Joseph Little Russell, who came from Scotland. Joseph was the owner of the Old Quaker Shop in Pittsburgh, Pa. The Russells are easy to see in Scotland, and the line goes back from there. Charles is often praised as being a sincere student of the scriptures. As we have pointed out to you before, he was just another puppet deceiving the masses and fulfilling the agenda. He is always given the key words the elite love to use, such as pious, charitable, selfless. He is the descendant of Cain. He was bred to be. Ros, meaning red-haired, and El, meaning one, gives us the red-haired Russell clan. The clan's territory was what we see now as Perth, Cross, Clackmarshire, and Aberdeenshire. Robert Russell was on the ragman rolls, giving allegiance to England in 1259. The clan is said to be a leaderless clan, however, only nobles or kings, leaders, would give allegiance to another kingdom. As Russell gave allegiance, he was a leader or ruler for this family. His descendant, Rosal, who was an English baron, fought at the siege of Berwick among others around 1333. Rosal also settled in Scotland and obtained the estate of Aden. The clan's emblem contains the scales, balancing on the tip of a dagger held in a fist. The words read above it, ending with an iron cross, are Virtus sine macula. This translates to virtue without blemish. The Russells can be seen through Britain, Scotland, Germany, and even France. In 1970, the 3rd Earl, Bertrand Arthur William Russell, died in UK. This Cambridge elitist was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature and was active in anti-war movements as well as the Homosexual Law Reform Society. He had 2 children, John and Catherine. John Russell was married in 1946 to Susan Doyfar Lindsay, daughter of the poet Vachel Lindsay. They had 3 daughters, Lady Felicity Ann Russell, Lady Sarah Elizabeth Russell, and Lady Lucy Catherine Russell. Neither Sarah or Lucy married or had children. Felicity had 1 daughter, Rowan. Like their father and mother and many in the elite bloodlines, the 3 daughters suffered from serious mental challenges. Lucy died from self-immolation at the age of 26, in the forecourt of a church near Penzance, ostensibly protesting in the cause of world peace. She was Batad's favorite grandchild. Because of mental challenges, John passed the title to his half-brother Conrad Sebastian. An Oxford man, Conrad passed the titles on to son Nicholas Lyulph, who died in 2014 and was succeeded as Earl by his brother, John Francis, who heads a charity for disabled children called Wide Horizons. Well, that is really all there is to the Russells. The line of Earls and others, which include a few Hollywood stars, is easy to find back to the tribes, and they are mentioned all through this document, so we will move right over to the final R family, the Reynolds. We see the Reynolds have written quite a few books on the occult, and they are in many of the clubs, like their cousins. In this family many are 32 degrees Masons and some are Knights of Malta, just as we have seen in the previous lines. The family is connected to tobacco, aluminum, drugs, churches, education, Hollywood, and much more. Reynolds family members from Astoria, Oregon, such as Scottish Rite librarian Mortician Reynolds, and Bend, Oregon, such as Mayor Paul Reynolds, who also runs a mortuary, and his son Mark. One of the first Illuminati monarch slaves in the Portland area to seek her freedom was Mary D. Reynolds. She was from the Mother of Darkness castle, which is used for programming and rituals. The castle situated near the village of Meaux in Belgium. She wanted to find treatment for the programming that goes with this, and since wanting her freedom, it is anybody's guess what happened to her. The Reynolds family is heavily involved with the monarch programs, as are all the families. One religious leader, Frank E. Reynolds, was an American Baptist minister ordained 1955. He was program director for a student Christian center in Bangkok, Thailand, and minister for Chicago Ecumenical Ministries in the 60s. Frank E. Reynolds, it seems, has been used for the one world religion, the New Age merging of all religions. He was used to introduce Buddhism to America under the cloak of Christianity. He and his wife may have written a number of books on this. Many of the Reynolds have been Episcopalians, as we saw in the DuPont family and others. Remember, the Episcopalian Church, like the rest of them, is run using Freemasons under control of the Jesuits, and thoroughly sold out to the occult. One monarch survivor has discussed a human sacrifice done at the altar of an Episcopalian church. Some Reynolds who have written occult books are Barry O. Gordon Robert Reynolds, author of Magic, Divination and Witchcraft among the Bards of Northern Rhodesia. Charles R. Reynolds with Regina Reynolds wrote 100 Years of Magic posters. David K. R. Reynolds is author of Nican Psychotherapy, Meditation for Self-Development. Denise R. Reynolds wrote Sensitive Thoughts for the New Wave Soul. May R. Reynolds and husband wrote 3 Worlds According to King Ruara, a Thai Buddhist cosmology, and the list goes on. Let's hear a bit of Celia Mary Reynolds. This again, from archives.org, is a letter she wrote as well as a poem she wrote in 1918. She was famous for poetry. She writes, quote, "My dear Dr. Reynolds, your letter was forwarded to me here from my home in Bennington, and I have taken plenty of time to consider its main subject. I had been thinking of sacrifice as a theme for my verses for the RF for this year, but had written nothing. When your letter came suggesting the Red Cross, I said at once, that is all right. There is the very embodiment of sacrifice. So I thank you for the suggestion. The subject is a great one, and I realize these simple little lines are a very inadequate expression of it, but as no better second thoughts seem to come to my mind, I send these to find a humble place, if you so will, in your after-dinner program. It is really a sacrifice on my part not to meet with the family this time, but the money I might have spent for that purpose has gone into the US Treasury to help win the war. So I can only wait for the report to bring me the echo of the good time the rest of you will have at the reunion. Fraternally yours, Celia M. Reynolds. And the infamous poem, The Red Cross, the Red Cross. Visions of world fame, rise up at mention of that name, a holy fame heaven must approve. That all good men respect and love. Its scarlet symbol bears no word, it has no voice which can be heard, yet still to every willing heart it speaks its message, do your part. End quote. The enthusiasm she shows for the Templar Knights Red Cross organization is well understood by this point. Just in case, let us look at some clubs and see the Reynolds there. The Cosmos Club includes members Joseph Melvin Reynolds and Lloyd George Reynolds. The Council of Foreign Relations, also known as CFR, contains member William Reynolds. In the Pilgrim Society we see Richard S. Reynolds, Jr. Some of the 33 degrees Masons of this family are Homer Gasfort Reynolds and Marshall S. Reynolds. Followed by 32 degrees Masons, Arthur Raleigh Reynolds, Ben Phillips Reynolds, Charles Philip Reynolds, Charles Shaw Reynolds, Ewie James Reynolds, Isaac Reynolds, Harry Edwards Reynolds, Henry James Reynolds, and John C. Reynolds, who is Deputy Grand Secretary of Grand Lodge of Illinois. The Knights Templars include Alex Reynolds, J. Height Reynolds, and T. Spordig Reynolds, to name a few. All of whom come from just one lodge in New York called Jerusalem Chapter No. 8. From the Knights of Malta Club we see John Charles Reynolds, who worked as a communications executive, trustee of the Presbyterian Hospital in San Juan. The Dukes and Reynolds, just like every other family here, use tax-free foundations as a vehicle to escape taxes and hide their wealth. The controlled press builds them up as charitable, when most of the grants by these foundations are self-serving for the benefit of the elite. We all have seen clearly, thanks to Hillary Clinton's emails, exactly how these foundations really work. Funneling tax-exempt money internationally to fund child trafficking, drugs trafficking and government shifts. Some of these foundations are the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation, the Kate B. Reynolds Foundation, the Richard S. Reynolds Foundation, and the Mary Reynolds Babcock Foundation, and the Duke Endowment at Rockefeller Plaza, in New York. All of these foundations work for the elite. The Kate B. Reynolds Health Care Trust provides a liaison between the Duke and Reynolds families. John A. McMahon, a Duke University graduate, was both chairman of the Board of Trustees of Duke University and member of the advisory board to the Kate B. Reynolds Health Care Trust. Clearly working for the interests of both the Dukes and Reynolds. Edwin C. Whitehead, chairman of Techico Corporation, serves as another example, as he works for both Duke and Rockefeller interests. Whitehead is a trustee of both Duke University and Rockefeller University. He was also governor of the UN Association, spreading the New World Order however he could. To drive this point home, take a look at a very short list of grants by just the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation in 1989. Notice the depths of their grants to education, religious bodies and child protective groups. Advocates for Children in Court received $25,000. Child Care Resources received $40,000. Duke UNC Center for Research on Women $60,000. Metropolitan Maison Church $27,100. Rape Crisis Center, in North Carolina $20,000. St. Andrew's Presbyterian College received $50,000 and the Women's Abuse Shelter received $15,000. In 1984 the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation in North Carolina gave money to these following organizations and more. Catawba College received $75,000. Chapel Hill Police Department $37,500, Child Watch $25,000, Contact of Winston-Salem, a crisis counseling service, received $15,000. Council on Drug Abuse $27,000. Elizabeth City State University $50,000. Friends of Public Radio $25,000. General Baptist State Convention of North Carolina received a nice $85,000. Mars Hill College $30,000. North Carolina Center for Public Policy Research received a whopping $225,200. North Carolina Department of Public Instruction received $103,000. North Carolina Hospital Education and Research Foundation $50,213. University of North Carolina received $233,265, the YMCA of Winston-Salem $300,000, and the list truly goes on and on. Another popular Reynolds is Julian Sargent Reynolds. Born in New York, June 30, 1936, he is the son of Richard Samuel Reynolds Jr. and Virginia McDonald Reynolds. Richard Samuel Reynolds Sr., the grandfather, founded Reynolds Metals Company. Julian spent 3 semesters at Princeton University before transferring to the Wharton School of Finance and Commerce at the University of Pennsylvania. In 1956, Julian Reynolds married Elizabeth Weir Veema and had 4 children before they divorced 1969. He was a teacher, the politician besides being a businessman of a large company. Richard Samuel Reynolds Sr. leads us back to 1611. Christopher Reynolds, of Isle of Wight, was the Reynolds who came to America, carrying the blood. Born in Gravesend, Kent, England, he relocated to the Isle of Wight, Virginia. In England we find the spelling changing as well as the Tilma branch merging with their elite cousins. There are only a very few families that breed with the lead Reynolds, and they come from different branches of the Reynolds line. In 1399 we see Sir Walter Raynell, MP, of East Ogwell, also known as Walter Raynell of Maleston. He was a knight and accompanied King Henry V in all his French wars, supposedly costing a great fortune. He is said to not hesitate to sacrifice his own possessions, in order to sustain the honor of his country. He became governor of Calais and the Marches. He was in Parliament and married Elizabeth and Joanna and died in 1475 in Ludlow, Shropshire, England. In 1060 we can follow them to Raynell Castle in Raynell, France, with Theobald Raynell. Theobald's mother Mabel Raynell d'Esserly in early 1000 leads us right back to Gloucestershire, England. Pepin the Short, also known as Pepin III, Pepin of Herstal, was born 714 of the Merovingian dynasty, known at the time as the Carolingian, in Belgium, and we have come full circle again. Son of Charles Martel, he was the father of Charlemagne. Pepin was crowned by Pope Stephen II and married Bertrada of Laon. The story of Charles is interesting, and I hope as with every detail we leave for you, you will look deeper, as is the purpose of the outline we provide. Charles Martel, also known as the Hammer Duke d'Antrim, mayor of the Palace of Austrasia, was the son of Pepin II. Moving back, Anne Geisel, Pepin II's dad, was the son of powerful Bishop Arnulf of Metz, and married to Saint Bega, daughter of the more powerful Mayor Pepin I. We can follow the line from here through a mass of Claudius, Walters and Dagoberts to Ferobert, king of the Franks around 131, son of Marcomer IV, king of Franconia ad Althildes of Britain. This line is easy to follow back to the very first king of the Franks. From here we can go back even further to Attila, the first Usim of the Cimmerians around 483 BC, and further back to Naphtali and Cain. We hope this section has given you even more to explore, and we will see you next time. Expect it.